Okay, I'm chatting with an old friend, many, many decades long. We have to be truth in something or other here. Composer, American composer Bruce Babcock, Los Angeles-based, Santa Barbara boy, I'm proud to say, graduate of San Marcos High School, et cetera, has been in the recording and film and television industry for 40 years?
Yeah,
Something like that.
yes.
And literally kind of like going from the mailroom up after his extensive degrees in study and all the rest of it. It's a very hard business. Hollywood film and television has had some success, and now is really having an opportunity the past several years to what engage in art, music, composition. And let's start right there. Why?
Well, I always wanted to do both things. I enjoy music for film, music for television. I wanted to do that because it's fun uh, and it pays well. But I also wanted to write concert music too. And when you're working a lot in television and film, deadlines or whatever, that there's really not the time to do the concert music. But I got pushed into it in about 2001. I was conducting a rather turgid score for someone who will remain nameless. And on one of the breaks, Rick Todd, who was a horn player, headed up the horn program at USC at the time, and he said, would I like to write a piece for his horn ensemble? And I said, that sounds good. And I said, how many horns do you have? And he said, 19. And you can write for any subgroup of that. So I picked 12 and wrote for 12 horns. And that was 2001. And so that's when I kind of restarted uh, writing the concert stuff again.
And as I recall, a very memorable and very fun piece for horns. I'm sure you've sent me the tape some ages ago, and it's just as with all of your music, there's a brightness, an energy, a style, a tunefulness, and all the rest. I want to speak to that, but first let me just let everybody know, and then you're going to jump all over me for this, I'm sure. What I find so fascinating, and we're going to talk about probably four, anyway, music that are on four recordings out there, including one that's entirely your own music. Just about this the idea of rhythmic energy and tunefulness, and I think that's all part of this experience in Hollywood and film music and television, and it's important. But also, I find so interesting. I consider you, frankly, Bruce, all these years, an extremely stoic personality. I mean, very, very like straight faced, and yet your music just jumps off the page. Is that just who we are? Like I would rather be in a library quietly reading in the dark for the rest of my life, but I had some kind of life as a conductor in front of people. Is that just how it goes with us and people?
Uh, there's something to be said for that. Yes, I'm not particularly flamboyant in my personal life, but I think that something comes through in the music. As Aaron Copland said, if it's in the music, it's in the man. And I always kind of thought, yeah, there's some sense to that. Of course, I'm sure he meant if it's in the woman, it's in the, if it's in the woman's music, it's in the woman uh,
As well.
as well,
Yes,
obviously.
surely he did. And so now we've done that all quite correctly. Let's talk about, just to give everybody an idea. You get to freelance this, lie all you like. Tell us about yesterday as just a tiny peek into the glory that is Los Angeles, some of the greatest musicians in the world. You're going to speak about the people you worked with yesterday at a recording session. We talked. You have to there has to be a certain mystery, a certain your non-divulgence. But give us, please, including LA musicians who do this all the time, also. But just this, what is this thing? So people in Iowa can get a thrill out of it. Tell me about this recording session yesterday.
We had a recording session at UCLA with Gloria Chang, the Grammy-winning pianist, um, and engineered by Rich Breen, who's a Grammy-winning engineer. And UCLA has this relatively new recording studio. It's maybe 3 years old, uh, and it's really a nice space. It's part of the Herb Alpert School. Um, it's technically in what they call the Mo Austin building, recording studio. Um, and you could get 25 or more musicians perhaps in there. We were just using piano, but the UCLA guys were saying this is just a huge perk for all the students who can record their audition tapes to be sent out to people and record their senior projects and all this and that. And the applied faculty people can use it for their cases. Gloria recorded a whole album of hers in the room, so it's really nice to have this, on your own campus.
And you've known her for how long?
I've known Gloria for more than 30 years. I met her through fellow composer Don Davis, and the first time I used her was on an episode of Falcon Crest, which will date all of us.
By the way, we're talking about the pianist Gloria Cheng. I'm not sure we mentioned her full name.
Yeah,
Gloria Cheng. Yeah.
And the music for Falcon Crest was not nearly as challenging as what she played yesterday.
Thank you very much.
I can't divulge much about yesterday's project, but it will become public relatively soon. But it's suffice to say it's a solo piano piece, relatively short, and Gloria is just a tremendous player. I mean, she's played music of Boulez, music of Esa-Pekka Salonen, Stephen Stuckey, you name it.
That's the famous CD that she won the Grammy Award for, wasn't it? A CD of the music of Stuckey, yeah, a tribute to him.
And John Adams, she's done lots of. She plays on the Green Umbrella series and the Piano Spheres series. So yeah, she's a wonderful pianist.
And as a composer running around just Greater Los Angeles, yeah, second largest city, maybe in North America, but at least in the U.S. And, we're not kidding around. It's a big city, bigger and bigger, subways and everything. I've waited all my life for stuff like that. But just give me an idea, because from what I've been following on Facebook, you've been very, very busy. Let's talk about the Wilson Observatory series. How brilliant is that? Danae Vlasic, I believe,
right.
A pianist whom I've interviewed a couple of times. Wonderful human being, and she's artistic director of that series. Just as an example of this sprouting up of little chamber, the wonderful chamber orchestra. I've forgotten its name now, but all over Los Angeles, let alone larger orchestras. It's a big city with several orchestras. But what is that life of running around to hear your premieres and meeting all these musicians, as you said, 30 or more years with Gloria Cheng? Are you all friends and pals now, or do newcomers come in? Are they allowed in? How does that work?
There's always new people coming in, but the Mount Wilson thing, was fun. They started this series 3 years ago, and actually the artistic director is Cecilia San, the cellist, but Danae was the music director for the most recent concert, because Cecilia was in Paris.
Yes, and by the way, speaking of major musicians, Cecilia San playing, I think she's at least principal Long Beach Symphony and all over the place, studio musician, and
right. And she went to the Paris Conservatoire with Yo-Yo Ma in France. So yeah,
dear friends, I know.
But anyway, you wouldn't think that the dome of a telescope at an observatory would be the natural concert venue, but it really is. It's an amazing sound. For the concerts, they crack the dome open a bit, and the acoustic in there is is really something.
Really stunning, and it's taken all these years for some musician to stumble upon that. I never would have guessed in a million years. I mean, a metal domed building where the telescope is, the great huge telescope,
Right.
and you crack it a bit, which probably obviously helps, so it's not quite so reverberant. And also, come on, you got to tell us all. I know the story, but let's give the family connection to the Mount Wilson Observatory, please, because it's fascinating.
Well, my grandfather was hired by George Ellery Hale, the observatory founder, to be on the staff starting in 1909. And my father joined the staff in 1946, and he became the director in 1964. Um,
So you have a lifelong free pass?
well, essentially, yes. Uh, um, but as I tell people, I did not get the science gene. Uh, my brother Ken did. He has a doctorate in physics from Harvard. Um, but the astronomer community in general, there's lots of music lovers there. And I've been told by many of them that, when they were observing at night, where you're in the cold for 12 hours on top of this telescope, they listen to classical music. Often it was KFAC at the time on radio, or they had a record player. And the general consensus of the overall favorite appeared to be Beethoven. So that's what these guys were listening to.
And also, although I also, frankly, have, my alibi is I'm a conductor. I like to, paint with my hands the big landscapes. I don't care about the formula. Actually, I care about it a whole lot more now that I know how important it is to know where you are harmonically and where things are being driven harmonically, all that. But again, basically, I'm not into mathematics, and yet so many mathematicians are, of course, Bach. They're interested in Bach and Beethoven, and for very good reason. The structures. That's probably why I was such a failure at my one or two attempts at composition. It's the structures. It's hard. And then 1,800 hours later, you have 3 minutes worth of music. You know all about that. You know, I don't know how you guys do it. What about Los Angeles? I'm not sure if we touched on this yet, but the idea of Los Angeles and the art music scene in Los Angeles becoming bigger and better as the city now becomes really a world-class city. Have you felt it? You've watched this for 30, 40 years. I know there are still problems, but quit giving me that frown. Be optimistic. How are things? What do you think?
I think we're in a good period. I mean, the LA Phil and Dudamel and Grant Gershon and the Master Chorale are at Disney Hall all the time, and then the opera continues to be, a huge attraction at the Dorothy Chandler. I just saw La Traviata a few weeks ago. So you have all that going on, but plus you have the LA Chamber Orchestra and the whole Orange County Pacific Symphony and all that. So there's 11 million people in LA County alone. That doesn't count Orange County.
Probably another 7. Orange County, four anyway. Yeah.
And at least half of them play the violin or the piano, it seems. Anyway, wow. So yeah, the scene is, and my friend Todd Mason started a home concert series called Mason Home Concerts. Yeah. And I think he's had 3 seasons now. And he can only hold about 50 people, but it's a rabid audience and some of the best players in town. And then they are lined up to try to get on to the next season always. Yeah. So, and that just came out of nowhere. So there's no shortage of people that want to play chamber music.
And is it Kaleidoscope, the chamber orchestra? I think it's Kaleidoscope.
Kaleidoscope is based down here. Yeah.
And so it goes, as would be appropriate in any city the size of Greater Los Angeles. But I guess I'm thinking things just feel kind of more exciting. Something, when people begin to be proud of themselves as a city. I hate to say this, but LA has gotten such a bad rap for so many years. It's smog center, and it's slum-ridden, and on and on and on. Now that it's really starting to shine, and of course the Olympics are coming, I just can feel this energy. especially even in chamber music, and that's really to me that's like the canary in the in the coal mine. If the chamber music is thriving better and better, then things are looking good.
Well, of course, you have USC and UCLA, and then
Sure.
I just, speaking with Rich Breen yesterday, he recorded our mutual friend, Niv Ashkenazi, at the new concert hall at Cal State Northridge, uh, which is very new, and he says is just terrific.
I've
So,
not been there yet, but I mean, we both of us were at Cal State Northridge for a while. You know, who would ever have guessed that they would reach a point of creating a major regional concert hall on that campus? And it's a beauty.
well, I remember that they mentioned the concert hall in the recruitment pitch to me in 1971. So now they do have the hall. It just took a few years longer than planned.
Yeah, you know, state budgets, stuff like that. I mean, basically, sometimes you know the state budget for the so-called concert hall gets slashed for 12 years, and then and so on and so forth. Let's talk about the reason we're getting together here. What I thought, we're just kind of winging it, but I wanted to, you know, you have music on 4 CDs, one of which is entirely your music that is from a little earlier, but I kind of wanted to start with the most important, the most recent CD, and all of these on Navona Records. What, do you get a special something? I mean, extra? But,
Yep.
and while we're at it, why Navona? Because these companies are really, really good and helpful and do things correctly. So I'm not giving a plug, but give me an idea. You stick with Navona. Give me an idea why Navona Records.
Yeah, well, they're an imprint of the Parma label, which is the overall
Yeah.
group, and they also do jazz albums
Yeah.
and
And
other
marketing.
things.
They help you with marketing and so on. Yeah.
They do the whole thing, and even though CDs may be dying, there are people that still want them. As Rich was complaining yesterday, with downloading something from the internet, it doesn't tell you who the engineer was, and he's done a lot of great albums lately, and there's no evidence that he's involved with it. So the whole liner notes, all of that stuff.
But those are glitches that will be cured. For example, when people send me CDs to review electronically, I have to remind them that they also need to send me the PDF of the booklet, things like that. But you're right. I mean, I really don't want another physical CD. I received them, but I'm beginning to have to put them in the bathtub. You know what I mean? I'm kidding,
Well,
of course. But
as one friend says, it's like a really expensive business card. You can hand it to people. It looks good. It sounds good. The hope is you get more performances or more commissions, or something. But anyway, so
I
yeah,
think that's the bottom line, whether it's in physical form as a CD or even electronically. And I guess maybe the physical CD, in a certain sense, is a more tactile business card. But these are, you said, expensive. But how else do you present yourself as a composer or as a musician than in this manner? So it's not going to die because it's important, but it will. Something's going to change, of course. Remember LPs, and so forth. So it's all good, I think. Frankly, I'm hearing more repertoire than I've ever heard ever, and I thought I was doing pretty good. I've heard orchestras that I had no idea existed on the planet. From
right.
cities I had no idea existed on them, and so forth. So the world is shrinking. I'm thrilled by it. I hope more people will make positive use of the internet. How's that for a discreet way of saying get out of your own little pockets of interest, folks? Let's talk about the most recent Navona Records 2019 release, Evolutionary Spirits. That's the CD's title. It's performed by Grammy-winning pro chamber choir, The Crossing. Donald Nally is the conductor. It has music by 10 composers. You're one of those 10, and the piece is called, and do I want to talk about this, the piece is called Be Still, Psalm 46, colon 10. Be still and know that I am God. Those are the words. And you, in 7-8 minutes. Well, how long is that piece? 6-7 minutes? What is it?
No, it's actually under 5,
Oh.
but it's 8 words. So that's that's the challenge. Can you do that and still make that sound?
Well, here's what my experience was, and I'm going to let you talk about it a little bit, and from a compositional point of view, from how you feel where you are as a composer. This has the most incredible contemporary choral mixing and sound and color and balances. It's just sublime. And then there's a little touch of jazz, I think, at least a little something harmonically or somewhere in there in the beginning. But the piece, when you reach the words "I am God," all glorious glory breaks out. I can't think of it. It's exciting, that segment, and then back to quietude and so on. It's just a magnificent, and I'm sure very challenging piece for singers. So we're not talking easy stuff. We're talking
No.
good, solid work. But tell me about it and putting it together and working with Crossing.
Well, the piece was actually written for Coventry Choir at All Saints Church in Pasadena, where we started to do these contemplative services at 5 o'clock on a Sunday, where there's no speaking. There's music, there's candlelight, there's poems written in the printed liturgy that people will read, but that's it. There's no sermon, there's no gospel, and all of that. So that was the purpose, is to write something that's a meditative, contemplative kind of piece. And so it started with them. And they're a church choir with 4 professional paid soloists. But they did.
They meaning the church choir. Just
Yeah.
to be clear.
James Walker, music director at the time, and they did a great job. And then it was through Facebook, oddly enough, it was picked up by a choir in Sweden, and they recorded it over there, a live recording, which tremendous choir they had. And so I was able to submit that recording to Navona and the Crossing, and the Crossing liked it, said they would do it. So the Crossing has a budget of about $1 million annually.
It's impressive for choir of any kind.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and as you said, they won the Grammy in 2019 and in 2018 for Best Choral Performance.
So it was it's not like you just casually, send them something and they say, oh, fine, we'll do that. No, this is something for them to have a look and say, yes, we'll do this. Yeah, at that
they
level.
have arrangements with Navona to do X number of albums over a period of time, and Navona solicits the submissions, but the Crossing decides, what they'll do. And so it's very nice to be selected. And I have to say it's probably the best recording and or performance of anything that I've ever had. I mean, that's how good they are. So that was fun. They recorded it in Philadelphia. I did not go. It was a kind of a thing like you and I are doing now, with Skype and telephone and because that's a long way to go for basically about an hour. So my funds are not unlimited, but it's not as nice as being there, but it does work. Does work well, and so that's how that's.
Let me make sure I understand. So you, via Skype, you watched and commented upon rehearsals, or you were just able to be there via Skype to watch the performance? How?
Yeah, you're actually hearing everything. And then there's a couple of rounds of editing afterwards that you have approval over, and then then there's all the artwork and all that stuff, and then it comes together. But they they're very efficient, and of course they're not sight reading this. They've rehearsed it, and they're putting it together. They're very serious, very professional folks, and they're doing all kinds of things now, kind of multimedia things, and they were just at the Disney Hall a few weeks ago doing something in that all-day music marathon that they had. So yeah, so that was a big thrill.
How do you
See,
feel in terms of what I heard, terms of kind of where you're going? I've heard some of your other choral music, and I'm thinking of the earlier piece. I have it here somewhere, that your church choir sang. That honestly breaks me up every time. I must be getting old. You know what I'm talking about in the all unto me.
yeah, the Archbishop Tutu piece. Yeah, that was.
But it's a whole different thing, isn't it? In
Yeah,
terms of where you were then and where you are now. Not that it's radically different, but just are you moving somewhere? Is choral sound of interest to you? Because I know you've done the songs, and so on. Is vocal music becoming interesting to you as well? I know there's lots of
yes,
chamber music.
because it's vocal and choral is not my background, but
Yeah.
it's very interesting. In a way it's similar to film because if you're working on a film, the film dictates the content, the shape, and everything else. And so if you have a poem, if you have a text, that dictates everything. So rather than sitting down and say, well, I'm going to write my symphony number one now, with that's talk about a blank slate.
Yeah.
So
By the way, which hasn't happened yet. You have a few years left. Go ahead.
well, I mean, I've written orchestral pieces. I don't think I'd ever call something symphony number one. I don't think that part of the game is a good title,
Yeah.
I have to say. But
And even inspiration, even a symphony number one, maybe must be inspired somehow. You know, your trip to Antarctica in 2028 or something.
but the piece for Archbishop Tutu, you know, required a kind of an anthem-like thing, and he still was a meditative thing. So they're different. But what was thrilling about the Archbishop Tutu thing is that he was there to hear it. So, that was pretty exciting.
And also, although I think you've kind of indicated you're kind of captive in a way as a composer by text, for example. On the other hand, I just want to compliment you. You use text beautifully. You realize text sonically beautifully, and we both know that sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes text and sound just do not work with some composers. So it's a real gift as well as skill, obviously.
Yeah, it's lots of fun to set a text to music and try to find the right music that fits what the poem says.
You mean
Sometimes,
from your head? Find the right music from your head that
yeah,
somehow is inspired by those words. It just mystifies me. Yeah, it's really a stunning kind of like immediate projection of your subconscious onto a page.
yeah,
It's like you're talking to your subconscious every day you sit down and write something. Yeah. And it is a conversation, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, I'm always kind of mystified as to how it happens. Is that I tend to like to have a big chunk of time, 6 or 8 hours to work in, and I'll start. Um, just try to get a few notes, get a scrap of something to begin with. That's day one. And then the next day, well, okay, you start with that, and then by the end of the day, you have 20 bars or something, and then you go, well, where did that come from? But then once you have something, then you can edit it and refine it and work on it, and after some period of time, you have a piece.
I suppose it's like so many creative things. I'm thinking of me as a critic. It takes forever to get that first paragraph to make sense, to have some message to do, to want to take people somewhere. By the way, remember everybody, I'm a musician. I am not a writer. I'm good, but I it drives me crazy because it's so hard to get that
Well,
first paragraph together. Then it kind of falls together. But I'm talking 4 hours. Composers are talking 40.
well, as someone said, I can't remember who, I hate composing. I love having composed. And that's the same with writing. Uh, so,
I
but yeah,
suppose writers go through the same agony. Hate the
it's
process maybe, but are
a
happy
blank
with the.
slate. Yeah, yeah. So,
So you see what I'm doing? I'm kind of moving. Oh, by the way, this recording of. Oh, hang on one second. Let me get back. I'm trying to move us from the present to the past. We've already had a hint that something else is coming with pianist Gloria Chang.
Right.
Everybody will wait with bated breath, myself included, for that one. I'll let everybody know right away when Bruce deigns to give me some more info. But we talked about a piece of choral music, the most recent, Be Still. Now I want to look at the 2019 again release. That's what I meant. It's like all of a sudden you're dishing them out like cards on a play deck. Again, Navona Records 2019 Quadrants Volume 3. By the way, a very exciting cover art, and that's also important, I think. The Altius String Quartet, and they are fabulous and young and vigorous and an amazing quartet, Altius Quartet. I think they're East Coast based, as I recall.
No, they're actually in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh,
University of Colorado at Boulder, and they recorded it in their concert hall, which is the Grusin Concert Hall, which Dave Grusin paid for because he's an alum. So it's a very nice concert hall. But yeah, they're four very young guys.
And they get to rub shoulders with the Takash Quartet, which is I think still in residence there. Yeah.
Yes. But the piece they recorded was one called The Present Moment, which you may remember because you commissioned it.
I do remember it, and I wish I could have paid you more. I don't think I paid you anything. You know how it is. But I'm very proud of it, indeed, The Present Moment. It is, let me just overview, and then you give it to me. And I'm trying to speak not from prejudice, but which of course I love this, and am very proud of this string quartet, but because it's solid. It's already been recorded 2 times, I think, including this one or something. It's been performed around.
Well, it was recorded by the Rainier Quartet.
At that time, yeah. And it's also fascinating to hear different performances. With Altius, this is such a refined, beautiful, elegant, clean, clear performance. Your turn. Go. Tell me about this wonderful piece I commissioned.
Well, it's a one-movement piece. It's 12 minutes long. It was also performed by our friends at the Armadillo String Quartet for their 30th anniversary, which was several years ago now.
So basically it has legs. It does.
Yeah.
It does, and it's extremely pleasant and enjoyable and dancerly and tuneful to listen to. Excuse me, go ahead.
Right. And it's not that easy to play by
There
any
are tricky
means.
little bits, yep.
Yeah. But it was kind of working with the idea of memory and also meditation and trying to be in the moment. But also the idea that when we remember things from years ago, we think we remember them a certain way, and then we find some contrary evidence that says we were completely wrong in the memory of that event. So the piece.
And people are usually pretty nice and pretend like you were correct. I've been there myself and have had to quietly keep my mouth shut while I was told about something that never happened.
So that's why the various themes keep coming back, but slightly changed, differently remembered way.
And it has its slow, fast, slow. It has its slow
Right.
movement or section, if you will. It has, forgive me, but it's a compliment, although it might be almost a cliche. But there's to me, there's this wonderful, speaking of the slow movement particularly, a kind of Copland-esque prairie feels. I mean, my mind just goes to extremes of Americana, which I know is old, tired, and maybe even might be a bit insulting to you. But you know what I mean? You're an American. There's obviously a beautiful.
Well, it does. Yeah, most of my music does tend to sound American, whatever that means.
Whatever that means.
But when you get to actually meet Aaron Copland, which I did in 1975, when I came to CSUN, that makes a pretty big impression. So that was a thrill, to say the least. And then one of my mentors, Hugo Friedhofer, was somebody who was very much in the kind of American Copland vein when he wanted to be. And he wrote my favorite film score of all time, The Best Years of Our Lives, which he won the Oscar for in 1946.
By the way,
So,
this speaks to, I'm going to just jump in a little bit before we move on to the next piece, the idea of, and it kind of surprised me because, I don't know, I too gather clusters of prejudices and pre-ideas around me. I have always a little bit kind of dismissed Hollywood composers. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of,
right,
as being a little beneath me and my white tie and tailcoat. Of course, it can't be more, that idea can't be more absurd because as I have discovered, in particular in the past couple, 3 years, interviewing so many incredible composers, lots of women composers in Los Angeles and throughout the world, and men as well, but especially in the film composers, the ones that most people of the public haven't even heard of, for
right,
LA film music and television music. They're dead serious, and they're well trained. A lot of them, of course, are immigrants from great countries and great art schools of music. So it's just I just want to remind all of us, myself included, that Hollywood is serious business. These are serious composers, and again, that when they get a chance or when they have the opportunity, as they told me over and over again, they loved to sit down and dig into so-called art music, whatever that fancy word means, but you know what I mean, something that has substance and subconscious and subtext and so on. Now, excuse me, do we move on to I want to talk, if we haven't already, the 2018 CD release. It's a 2 CD release, 10 composers, Molto Bello, by the Trio Casals, which is LA based. I hope I got that one right. Ah!
no, they're Pennsylvania based. The cellist is Ovidiu Marinescu, and the pianist is Anna Kizlitsina, and
Well done.
she is from Russia, and Ovidiu is from Romania, and then his wife is the violinist in the trio. But my piece only involved the cello and the piano.
Yeah.
Again, familiar to you because I commissioned that one as well.
By some, you know what it was? I gave you some kind of con about being composer in residence for the Santa Barbara Chamber Music Festival, and you're the one that created all of this good, yummy stuff, including Imagined Remembered, this fabulous sonata for cello and piano, just wonderful. And now this one does have 2 recordings already.
Right.
Yep.
Also recorded by Armin Zajikian and Robert Thies.
Yep.
Armin on the cello, Robert on the piano. And that's on the 2015 album from Navona, Time Still.
Yeah,
So
it has all of your stuff on it, all of your music.
Viju and Anna performed at Carnegie Hall in 2018. And then this year they took it to China on tour with them. So that was fun. That was a first.
And then just so everybody can understand that there is one entire CD of your music. Now I'm back. Hang on, let me get down here to, I think it was 2015. Yeah, 2015. The Time Still chamber vocal and choral music of Bruce Babcock, and this has just some wonderful pieces. Springscape for harp, flute, and viola with the Debussy trio, Los Angeles-based. Hello, I got that one right, I hope. The lovely All Unto Me for chorus with your church choir on that CD. Imagined Remembered. This is the performance with Robert Thies and Armin Kazigiaki, and his names are so hard. But also, I remember a time when you were a jazz sax player in the high school jazz group and stuff like that. In other words, sax has been, it's stuck to your ribcage at least occasionally, yeah? So in re-listening to Irrational Exuberance, that's for alto sax, cello, and piano. What an incredible combination of instruments. Bravo. On that CD. And then the other one, whoever would have dreamt of these wonderful Dorothy Parker, the poems of Dorothy Parker. This Is What I Know, 4 songs on poems of Dorothy Parker for soprano, piano, and alto saxophone. So don't tell me there's no wonderful repertoire for alto saxophone. Okay, these are this shows an understanding of that instrument alone. That's amoebic or something. I don't know. It's kind of part of you or not. Did sax have a part in you to play an efficient part in your life?
Yes. I mean, it helps that was my main instrument, so I know how to write for it well. And those two pieces are actually very related because I met Doug Massick, the saxophonist, at a concert in Griffith Park, the Symphony in the Glen that Arthur B. Rubinstein ran, and Doug was his guest soloist with the orchestra that day. So I met Doug, and I followed up. I sent him some stuff. Didn't hear from him for 3 years. And he calls and says he's got a 3-album grouping coming out, wants me to write a piece for that. And he decided it would be good to have the cello as the third instrument. So we did that, and then that was being performed at UCLA, Faculty Artist Series, which he was sharing with Juliana Gondek. And she liked the piece in rehearsal and said, well, I have to have Bruce write songs for me. And so she told me that, but Doug has to play on them as well. And so that's how that came about. So the piano, alto sax, and voice.
See, so it is kind of clubby. A little bit clubbish, but that's how the business works.
One thing leads to another, always.
Exactly right. And the only thing is we're talking about hang on, a loud motorcycle's going by. One thing leads to another, but in this case, in Los Angeles, California, at a very, very, very high level, if you happen to be running in that crowd, which you are. So congrats.
Well, one of the things that is a benefit of working in television and film all this time is that the players that make up the orchestra all play chamber music all the time in their free time, and so you know them all, and they ask you to write something for them, or you say, I'm going to write a piece for you, which is what I did with Gloria Chang on this thing that happened yesterday. And kind of tying two things together, at the recent Mount Wilson concert, the harpist was Marcia Dickstein, who is the founder of the Debussy Trio, and she and Gila Plitman are going to perform 2 songs of mine coming up at a date to be determined, but most likely January, February.
We're speaking soprano.
Yeah. Gila Plitman, another Grammy winner, and Marcia, and this will be at the Pasadena Conservatory of Music on a date to be determined, but early in 2020. So I wrote something for Gila last year, which premiered at one of the Mason home concerts.
I saw you posted some pictures on Facebook. I love Facebook, by the way. I'm sitting up here. My poor old car is not going to get up the Conejo grade anymore. I'm not going to get to LA until I could ever afford another car. But it's so nice with Facebook. I can kind of keep in touch. As I told you, I was really kind of there at the Wilson Observatory, the rehearsals before, that were several minutes of rehearsals before the concert and through the concert, and the wonderful review in what is that? Los Angeles
LA Opus.
LA Opus. Wonderful review of the performance. So that's a hot ticket.
Yeah. Well, Danae did a great job of publicizing the Mount Wilson thing. There was something else I was going to say, and it's completely left my mind.
This is the onus on us. We're not 16 anymore. Listen, no. What have we? If you can return to consciousness, can you tell me? What have I forgotten? Is there anything left burning? We've discussed these CDs. What I'm going to put, of course, is this interview up on. Do I have a website for you? I have a website for an earlier something. I don't know. We'll get it straightened out. Put up at performingartsreview.net. But with these CDs and how to buy them and all that good stuff.
There is one more thing coming up, and that's that it's still another piece that was played at the Santa Barbara Chamber Music Festival, but predates it. The piece for solo flute, Soliloquy,
yes,
has been recorded by flutist Lindsay Goodman for the Navona label once again, and it's already recorded, and it'll be out before the end of the year.
Nice.
And then the next thing that's coming is that the piece I wrote for Mount Wilson last year, July 1 of 2018, is going to be recorded by yet another quartet based in Boston. And they're going to record it in September. And for the life of me, I'm blanking on their name, which is horrible.
You'll send me an email later. If nobody will know the difference, we'll get it up on the, get it up
Yes,
on the page. It'll
but
be perfect.
there's two more things that are upcoming in the Navona pipeline, believe it or not. Um, so the Sirius quartet,
Ah,
not as in
good word to say.
don't be so serious, but Sirius, Sirius.
Yeah, and I think I've got a CD of theirs or something somewhere because it rang instant bells when you mentioned them.
Very, very good quartet in Boston.
Yeah.
And that's going to be followed by a Carnegie Hall concert as well. So there's stuff coming up in the pipeline. But, if I hadn't done this piece for Mount Wilson, then this opportunity would
Yes,
have.
no.
So,
That is how it works. And just one last couple, because we're getting over here. I want to wind it down the next couple of minutes. I'm so curious always, and I always use the word legacy. Is there something about a drive for legacy in these recordings? Of course, every composer wants to have all of their music recorded, but is there something else there? I mean, you know what I mean? Because I see this, I witnessed something I hadn't witnessed before. I started reviewing CDs. People are really, artists are really driven to put out as much of their work as they can, especially composers. Of course, it's about legacy, but anything else there, or am I just drifting into space?
well, I had a friend tell me he's one of the best players in town, and he made his own album a couple of years ago. And he said, "This is going in the coffin with me. I did this, you know."
Yeah.
So, I mean, we will not, be remembered in a giant way. It won't be around to enjoy it if somebody does remember us. But it's just that, while you're here, you wanna do something that you feel fulfills what you're here for. And the most rewarding part of that is probably just the actual work itself. When you're by yourself in your little studio, and the performances are gratifying, and it's gratifying when somebody wants to perform it and record it. But it's just kind of, well, where does your mind live day to day? And if it has a place to be that you love and feel is your essential being, and
that explains everything. That's why I have trouble writing reviews. I'd rather be conducting.
right.
You know, I'm happy conducting, and of course that's now that's legacy at this point in my life. Bruce Babcock, American composer, Los Angeles based, old friend for many, many years. What a great pleasure having a chance to kind of overview your compositions with you, to talk a little bit about this increasingly exciting life in Los Angeles and its art world and its art music world. And just one last one, if you can. We're keeping quiet about the announcements to come about the recording project with pianist Cheng, but is there then another cupboard behind which is the, you know what I mean? How many other pieces are stacked up in the back of your head, or does it just kind of come as it comes? Oh, this opportunity is here. I'll write this for you know what I'm trying to say. Now, there's what aren't you telling me?
Yes.
What you're working on.
No, there are no big plans for something staggering coming up. I've promised Niv Ashkenazi to write a piece for he and his girlfriend, so violin and bassoon.
Yeah.
That's the next thing.
And that's a challenge. What an interesting combination.
It is.
Yeah.
And so that's the only thing that's really in the pipeline. And I'm just kind of amazed. So when I stopped working in Hollywood, which was 2011, I was wondering, well, what am I going to be doing? And these other things just keep coming up. You know, that's when I
Excellent.
decided, you know, to finish the Time Still album, and then it just went from there.
Yeah, and then there's the trip to the mailbox every week for the residuals check. That's fine. Everything works beautifully, right?
Now it's direct deposit, so
Oh, I see. Right. Of
don't even,
course, it's the 21st
I,
century.
I view it as my annual National Endowment for the Arts grant.
Oh,
Uh,
that's
you know,
very intelligent way of, very enlightened way of looking at it. Bruce Babcock, we've got to end. Thanks very much for giving me some time this afternoon. I hope we've given everybody, including many friends of all of ours, of both of ours that are going to watch this, just an additional little idea and peek into this world of Los Angeles and Hollywood composing and just art music composing, the state of this great city that's becoming really exciting. So we're happy. The climate's pretty decent. It's going to be okay.
right.
Bruce, thanks much. See you.
Okay, thanks, Dan.